Well, hi, my name's Bailey Bickley. I am the chief of DIB Defense at NSA's Cybersecurity Collaboration Center, which is our organization that really tries to scale what we call intel-driven cybersecurity across the U.S. defense industry, but certainly other critical infrastructure sectors as well. So thanks
Okay.
for having me on.
Yeah, no, thanks for joining us. This is a super relevant topic, especially as all of these executive order initiatives are kind of coming to fruition, and everything's just getting more complex and more confusing. I think for the defense industrial base and really for everybody in industry. Can you talk about why you guys established the CCC, the Collaboration Center?
The CCC was established in 2020, I think, because we were really seeing trends in how the threat landscape was changing. And for NSA specifically, we have really unique insights on foreign nation state cyber threats, their plans, intentions, capabilities. But in a domestic space, we rightly lack visibility into how they are targeting the networks of the companies that we care the most about. And this is, particularly important within the defense industrial base or the DIB, because we know that those companies are frequently a target of nation state actors who are looking to steal, sensitive U.S. government information, company proprietary information, and really use that to undermine our economy as well as our national security. So the Collaboration Center was created to say, okay, we're seeing things in foreign space, but we want to partner with industry to get insights on what's actually happening on your network and then put those insights together and, jointly not only detect and mitigate threats, but really prevent them.
Okay, and a brief government lesson for those that may not know why NSA is providing services to the DIB and not, say, the entire federal complex. Can you explain a little bit why NSA is focused on the DIB so much?
I will try not to sound too governmenty when I say this. So, as part of PPD 21, presidential policy directive, the United States is cybersecurity is divided into different sectors. Like you have the finance, energy, the DIB, et cetera. And the Department of Defense is the sector risk management agency for the DIB. So they're responsible for managing and driving down risk for all DoD contractors. And as a combat support agency, NSA falls underneath DoD. And so the DoD CIO felt that we could really action NSA's insights through the private sector, through defense industry partners. And then he also felt that we were able to help small to medium sized businesses in the defense industrial base improve their cyber hygiene. So that's the role that we play.
Okay, and just another quick question. Do you guys help subcontractors or is it just prime contractors?
Great question. We're able to support what we call the entire DIB ecosystem. So that is anybody that has a DoD contract, sub or prime, as well as their supply chains and their service providers. So we frequently work with cloud suppliers, internet service providers, MSPs, and we try to find what we call high impact partners. And those are those large, capable cybersecurity companies, technology providers, DIB primes, who are able to actually action NSA threat intelligence on behalf of their customers and really scale hardening across billions of endpoints. So that's kind of the first thing that we do. And then for those small to medium sized businesses, the mom and pop companies, we work to provide them no cost cybersecurity services to really just improve their basic cyber hygiene.
Yeah. So, what kind of services do you provide to these small and medium sized companies?
Yeah. So first, I want to say up front that these services are paid for by DoD CIO. So they're provided for free to contractors because DoD has actually fronted the cost. And they're also provided through third-party contractors. So we actually competitively award contracts to provide these services to companies. And then NSA's role is to, pay, ensure companies are onboarded, but also really work to bolster these services with our unique insights of nation state threats. And I'll explain that a little bit more as I go along. So we have 3 services right now that are really mature. The first one is protective DNS. The second one is attack surface management. And the third one is threat intelligence. And so for protective DNS, for those that aren't familiar with domain name system, it's essentially the phone book of the internet and how you can type in a human readable URL like nsa.gov and that's then translated into a machine readable IP address. And because DNS is so pervasive, we've seen adversaries use that and abuse it to actually install malware, gain access to sensitive systems, and even do data exfil. So protective DNS acts as a DNS filter that stops parties from unwittingly connecting to known bad websites. And it leverages 2 things to do so. First, commercial threat intelligence feeds, but also NSA is feeding in unique indicators of known malicious activity that we're getting from signals intelligence, from research, open source research, international partners, industry partners, et cetera. So we're really trying to bolster that service. And to date, we're feeding in about 100 unique indicators a week that are being blocked for all of our customers. And since we launched this service, we've blocked almost, I think it's 800 million instances of known bad activity. So that's the first service. The second one is attack surface management. And through that, what we're doing is we're really taking an adversarial approach to try to find any internet-facing assets for DIB companies. And then once we identify those, doing vulnerability scans to find vulnerabilities that are unpatched, misconfigurations that might leave customers vulnerable. And the whole goal is to just find and fix things before the adversary does and our customers are compromised. But the one other thing that we do here that I think is really helpful for small businesses especially is that, we don't give them an 80-page report. We write a really tailored, prioritized executive summary of issues for mitigation that are prioritized based off of the criticality of the vulnerability and what we know that adversaries are currently exploiting. So we're trying to be the signal through the noise and help folks that have patch fatigue really manage that. The final service is cyber threat intelligence sharing. And this is essentially where DIB companies can enter into a partnership with NSA that's entirely mutually beneficial, voluntary, and receive non-public NSA threat intelligence that might be specific to the defense industry and the way that we see adversaries targeting the DIB. And that also gives these DIB companies access to NSA analysts so that they can ask companies specific questions and we can actually collaborate on the intelligence that's being shared.
Yeah, that makes sense. But these solutions sound amazing. But most small businesses don't necessarily have an in-house IT department, and maybe some of them don't even have MSSPs at this point. What does it take for a company to actually implement these services that you guys are providing? Because that's actually the biggest pushback that I get when I talk about these things on LinkedIn is, well, we looked into it and it was just too hard. So what does it actually take for companies to take these services in and make them useful?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great point. And it's something that we kept in mind as well as we began to roll these out. And so we really looked to pilot services that are truly set it and forget it for those companies that do have those small teams or don't have the in-house expertise. So there is a small level of investment from companies upfront to meet with our commercial providers. I'll use PDNS as an example, and then simply redirect their DNS queries to our provider's filter. But once they make that investment, it really is very seamless to the end user. They get a dashboard where they can see what's been blocked or mitigated to date. So that's something that we keep in mind. The onboarding process is pretty easy as well. And we're careful to not put undue burden on those small to medium sized companies.
And what happens if a small business is alerted, a small business that doesn't have an IT team, and they're alerted to a vulnerability and they can see it and they know it, but what happens if they haven't really budgeted to fix it or they don't really know what to do? Does NSA provide any guidance or direction in how to help remediate those vulnerabilities?
Mhm. Yeah, I think that's one of the best features of our threat intelligence collaboration service, which people are automatically enrolled in when they enroll in attack surface management or PDNS, is that they do have the ability to ask those questions of our analysts. And when able, we try to provide mitigations, guidance, or resources that they can use in their efforts.
All right. So does anybody get in trouble if NSA finds a vulnerability or some sort of patch that they haven't, or anything that they haven't patched? Does NSA get them in trouble or tell anybody? Like what happens when a vulnerability is discovered?
Yeah, that is actually one of the things that I love most about working in the collaboration center, which is we operate in this really beautiful space that is entirely voluntary. So there's nothing that contractually or congressionally mandates any company to work with us. It is truly collaborative in nature. And so with each of our partners, we sign an agreement, a non disclosure agreement that protects the sensitive information that's being shared with one another. Um, and, to the point of your question, we don't play in a reporting space. We're not in a contract enforcement space, but we do certainly expect and advise our partners that they do need to adhere to any reporting requirements that are written into their contracts. But that's just not the lane that we're in.
Okay, that's very good to hear, I think, because I think people are scared that, maybe this is Big Brother looking in on my network and, I don't know if I want that. The other
And
side.
one of the things I try to tell people, we've heard the Big Brother thing, and I tell them it's me. It's Rob and Chris and Tia who's sitting off screen. It's not, we're trying to dispel the Big Brother myth as much as possible.
Right. No, and but that's good because people who are not in the IC don't necessarily understand, what they do and what they don't do. Um, on the other side of this effort is compliance. Are your services aligned to NIST 800-171 or the CMMC or anything that, the defense contractors, yes, protecting the data is important, but so is this compliance and this contractual requirement that, is coming. So are your services aligned to these frameworks?
Yeah. So we're working closely with DoD CIO right now to try to make it more clear how our services do align with CMMC requirements. And it's tough because we don't want to come across as selling a one-stop shop solution for CMMC, but we do believe that each of our services satisfies several NIST 800-171 controls. And we're working to develop slick sheets and other marketing materials that make those connective tissues more clear.
Okay. And so what does NSA get out of all of this effort? Helping the DIB, it's a good thing and you're working with CIO, but what does NSA as an agency or your office get out of helping the DIB like this?
hmm Yeah, I think first and foremost, sensitive US government information about weapons platforms, capabilities, all of that is protected full stop. We really want to make sure that the investments DoD is making today are secure into the future. Not only making sure that we're protected against nation state actors like the People's Republic of China or Russia, but also ransomware attacks on these small to medium sized businesses. So that is our first and foremost goal. I think that there's a lot of secondary benefits and ripple effects and dividends to that. Um, One of them being that working with DIB primes and DIB service providers, think of an antivirus provider. We can action NSA's intelligence across not only the defense industrial base, but all 16 critical infrastructure sectors, as well as our allies across the globe, because we're all using the same technology providers. And so that really has an impact on the adversary. When we're able to kind of share their malware or their tactics, techniques, and procedures with folks that can action that information, that's something we get excited about as well. We also get insights on how nation state actors are targeting the DIB that helps us develop a more fulsome threat picture and trends, informs investments. And then, just on a personal note, I think all of us in this mission space take a lot of satisfaction in helping small to medium sized businesses that might be below the cyber poverty line, so to speak, secure their networks. That's something that I think it's a really fulfilling line of work.
I've never heard the term cyber poverty line, and I really like that term. I was working as a contractor in ANS, OUSD ANS, before CMMC switched over to CIO. And the DepSecDef back then kept asking us what industry is spending on cybersecurity, and we had no idea. We were like, I don't know. Do you know what the cybersecurity poverty line is? Like what revenue or business size, just so that maybe companies have an idea of like where they fall, like how wealthy am I? Am I actually, below the poverty line, or are we doing okay? Can you share any of that?
Yeah. It's a great question. I think that right now it is an analogy versus something more concrete. To be honest, I saw uh, the line, the cyber poverty line on LinkedIn the other day when somebody was, I don't want to say ranting, but someone was very passionately talking about the impacts of CMMC on small businesses, and they talked about that line, and I thought it was really compelling. So it's not something that, the government has kind of come up with, but rather I saw it used by industry, and I've tried to adopt it in my own language because I think it does paint a compelling and accurate picture.
Yeah, and with that in mind, just to reiterate, these services that you guys provide are free. They're free to everybody who voluntarily enrolls. Is that correct?
That's correct. And we sometimes hear from folks, well, why should I enroll in NSA services? Like, what's in it for me? Especially if I already have a managed service provider or I already have a DNS filter. And, what we say to that is first, you get it for free. DoD is making an investment in you because we want to help. So they really are available at no cost. And then the second thing is, again, we are bolstering our DIB specific offerings with unique indicators of bad activity that we get from our various sources.
So if companies already have an MSSP that they're working with and they really like working with, do they have to fire them and get a new one? Or how does that work if they already have some of this, but maybe not all of these services?
Mhm. We actually have the ability to work with MSPs for DIB companies that they already have a relationship with. Essentially, both the MSP and the DIB company will just sign our agreement that we provide, and then we're able to work directly with that MSP to action information on the DIB company's behalf.
So if there are providers out there, MSPs, MSSPs who are not currently providing services through these NSA programs, is there a way for them to get involved, for you guys to screen them so that they can maybe advertise? Are they allowed to advertise that they're working with NSA? How does that work?
That's a great question, and it's something that we're looking at right now is, we have a challenge. The DIB is vast, 300,000 companies, and the number changes and fluctuates every day. How do you reach all of those companies and do it through trusted channels? Because people genuinely think when we reach out, it's not real or it's spam. And so partnering with MSPs is one of the ways that we're looking to do that right now in terms of having them, point to our services, reference them, and do some marketing on our behalf. I mentioned the NDAs that govern our relationship and protect the information being shared. We're never going to go out as NSA and say we're partnering with this company. But if a company or a managed service provider or a IT company decides they want to publicly acknowledge their relationship with us, we're really supportive. And there have been multiple partners, whether a DIB Prime, an MSP, or another company that have publicly said, we're working with the NSA CCC to do these things. But that decision is really the company's to make.
Is there any way to validate that companies are working with NSA? I can just see, con artists out there or, sleazy companies who may try to say that they have a relationship just to win, the trust of small businesses, because small businesses probably don't really know how to vet vendors for cybersecurity. It is kind of the Wild West. Is there any way that they can validate, or are there specific questions that they could ask that only somebody who is actually working with NSA would know?
Yeah, that's a great point as well. We keep a careful eye on, the news, social media, and other platforms to see if people are being dishonest about, our relationship, the nature of our relationship, using NSA's name as an endorsement of their product or service. And if we see that and it's not true, we do work to take action. For a company that is wondering, I think I would advise them to email our team. The email address is dib_defense at cyber.nsa.gov. And we can then work directly with them to answer any questions or concerns they may have.
That's excellent, because that's definitely a concern. Earlier, you mentioned protection against ransomware. Ransomware has been, I think, the primary cybersecurity concern, at least for IoT and manufacturers. How do your services help protect companies against ransomware?
Mhm. Yeah, I think that's a great point as well. We frequently talk about the nation state targeting, but SMBs, they're like, I'm really just worried about, getting hit by a ransomware crew. So specifically attack surface management, I think, is really helpful in that space because we're helping companies identify publicly known vulnerabilities that aren't patched. And that's one of the top ways that ransomware actors are getting, access to their victims. So the other thing that I really love about that service is anytime that a new CVE is released or proof of concept for an exploit is developed and released on social media in the news, we actually monitor that and we can look across our customers' holdings that are enrolled in the program and say, hey, you have this unpatched vulnerability. We flagged it, for you X months ago, but now there's a proof of concept for an exploit released. Like, no kidding, now's really the time to take action. So we can, again, help them prioritize based on the emerging threat landscape.
Okay, so it sounds like these are all amazing offerings and services. What is the biggest challenge that you are facing enrolling new companies into these services?
Yeah, I hinted towards this earlier. The biggest one is actually reaching these companies. There's so many of them and they really are small businesses. And so how do you find those forums where they're showing up? Then the second thing is actually compelling action. And it's funny because this hit home for me the other day. My sister was telling me I needed to switch credit cards from one card to another that she felt like had better benefits. And it took me 6 months to actually pick up the phone, cancel one card, and swap to another because I just couldn't be bothered. And so that's something that I think about a lot is how do you get these companies to really take that step? Even though it's small, it's just sending an email, it's having a one-on-one call, it's redirecting your DNS queries. It still requires the person on the other end to do something. And so trying to figure out the incentives and the motivators for compelling that is something that we're really working on right now.
Yeah. So how does a company get enrolled, and what kind of upfront time requirement does it take to get enrolled? And how long, once somebody sends that email, that initial email, from that time, how long does it take for them to get fully onboarded?
So it's pretty simple. We have a website, nsa.gov/CCC. You can visit that site and fill out a form. There's a couple of very minor mandatory fields, name, company, how you heard about us. That'll send an email to our team. You can also email them directly, dib_defense at cyber.nsa.gov. And from there, we'll just do a very quick vetting to make sure that you meet the qualifications. and set up a call with the company to discuss and answer any questions that they have. I have been told by the onboarding team that in some cases we've had that process go through in less than an hour. We've had a company that was really responsive. We chatted, phone call, they signed the agreement, good to go. In most cases, I would say it takes a couple days simply because you're swapping emails, trying to get time on a calendar. But it's pretty seamless and pretty fast if the person on the other end is responsive.
Wow, that's really fast. I was expecting like a month or a couple of weeks and we'll get back to you. Can you tell us how big your team is? Or, because I think a lot of people worry there's 300,000 companies. What if all 300,000 start bombarding you for these services? Are you guys able to scale? How does, are they at risk of a bottleneck or being put, in a long queue?
When we designed and selected the services that we provide, we also looked at ones that are scalable and low cost, so that we can enroll the significant amount of partners. And by using commercial providers, that's their daily business is, enrolling these companies. So it's incredibly scalable. My team is growing. We don't really have a bottleneck, but we are, as we're putting this focus on business development and reaching these companies, we're making sure that we hire the folks accordingly to manage that process from our end. And I would be remiss if I didn't say NSA writ large is hiring 3,000 jobs. So we're just really excited about, bringing on new talent.
Yeah. Speaking of this hiring frenzy that you guys are engaged in, what kind of cyber professionals are you hiring and looking for to bring on board?
All kinds. And I don't say that as a cop out, but we have a lot of different work roles and opportunities available in cyber. But we're also specifically looking to try to reach those mid-career professionals who may have been recently impacted by the tech layoffs. We feel that we can offer hopefully a sense of stability. And I think also it's just a member of the cybersecurity community. We want to help. These people are in a really challenging time in their life, and we're hiring. So it feels like a win-win to be able to get someone out of a situation that might be bad and stressful and also fill a key role at NSA. That's something we're excited about.
Yeah, I mean, that's it. I feel like there's always somebody hiring for cyber professionals, and if they can go work for the government and do amazing, that's the one thing I miss about the government is doing things every day to help, national security, whereas on the, civilian side, we're just helping the government do things. So one last
But
question.
it's still really important. So we're all one team.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I wish that more people were in this effort together instead of picking their sides to champion. Like we're all in this together for one common goal. So one last question before we wrap it up. Can you talk about any recent service wins or, big wins or recent wins that you can talk about these services and how they help provide security to these small businesses?
Yeah, I think there's a couple examples, and I'll just highlight some that might have been in the news so folks can Google this and they don't have to take my word for it. This week, NSA, FBI, CISA, international partners, and industry partners all released an advisory highlighting how sophisticated nation state actors are using living off the land techniques to gain access to their victims. And that's just one example of when we talk about threat intelligence collaboration, what does that look like? What is the outcome? And it's everyone bringing their insights to the table and collaborating to make a product that's actionable and useful for the whole community. So that's one example that's pretty timely. But we've had others where we were working with a DIB company and they said, we're seeing this anomalous traffic, don't really know what it is. We both began to pull the thread and we actually found that it was a nation state intrusion. And we were unsure how they were able to access this victim's networks. And we were able to use our attack surface management program to get clarity on the vulnerability that they used to get in. And we were then able to look across all of our customers that were enrolled and find others that might have been vulnerable to that technique and notify them. And that's something else that ultimately, as we worked through that, effort to detect and characterize the threat and develop mitigations, the end result of that was another fully unclassified public-facing advisory on NSA.gov. So working with industry, working with the defense industrial base results in these products that can be used not only by the DIB, but by many. And we hope that that's what people really do.
And it sounds like an awesome opportunity for a random IT person to work with an intelligence, agency to help solve a cyber mystery. So that sounds exciting on both sides.
I'm going to start saying cyber mystery, just like I say cyber poverty line. I love that.
Yeah. No, thank you so much for your time. This has been awesome. Is there anything else you wanted to make sure that you communicated to everyone or shared that we didn't talk about?
No, I just want to thank you guys for giving us the opportunity, for giving us this platform. If I could leave you all with one thing, scratch that, let's make it two. If you're watching this and you think you qualify, please, please, please reach out. I don't like to scare people, but it is a little bit of time investment that we think will significantly reduce your risk of compromise, of your proprietary information being stolen, a costly incident. We really do want to partner with you. And if you're watching this and you don't qualify, then be an ally, help us spread the word. So thank you again for the opportunity, and we appreciate the partnership.
Thank you so much.
Welcome to Defense TechCast, your deep dive into CMMC, CUI, and all of the cybersecurity hot topics affecting the defense space today. Brought to you by clearancejobs.com.